Hello everybody and welcome to my first news video about the upcoming Farming Simulator 25, and this one is a real game changer. I'm talking about real ground deformation, and all the information you're about to hear is available on the official Farming Simulator 25 blog. Apparently Giants have worked on the idea behind ground deformation for quite a while. They have even implemented it in some way in FS25, which I'm gonna talk about a little later, so now let's check it out. The information comes from Eddie Edwards, one of the senior software engineers. He shares that there is not much in the Giants engine that he hasn't actually worked on in some context over the past 12 years. First, which factors define how the ground deforms? A number of factors affect this. Firstly, even ground types have a different level of firmness and viscosity. Termite cannot be deformed at all, for instance, while mud can be deformed a lot due to different firmness, and driving on snow instantly crushes it, while driving on mud causes it to compress over a longer time due to different viscosity. Also, if the ground is wet, this affects the deformation as well. Which vehicle you're driving also affects the deformation. The weight of the tractor and the width of its tires both affect the reaction of the terrain, and a slow moving vehicle will sink faster than a fast moving vehicle. How does ground deformation affect gameplay? What will players feel? For the first time, FS25 gives a real physical response from the terrain. You will feel the tractor bumping over the ground, and you will see it creating ruts and tracks, and if you go back and drive over those ruts and tracks, you will feel the effects from them as well. It is also harder to steer if you have dug into the ground, just as it is in real life. Driving in rain will be more difficult than driving when it's sunny. Your tire configuration now has a greater effect too, and you may need to consider which tires are best to use for different seasons and different types of fieldwork. What kind of machine equipment will showcase ground deformations best? Plowing is a new experience now. The plow creates real physical furrows, which can not only be seen more clearly on screen but also affects the tractor when driving over them. Also, machines with caterpillar tracks can come into their own now, as they can handle uneven ground so well. What were the technical challenges in implementing ground deformation? The ground deformation works on a grid size of 12.5 cm, which works out to be 16K by 16K for a 2 km map. That's around 256 megapixels. The map itself is only 4 megapixels. There were vertical technical challenges with storing this data efficiently and also with processing the data efficiently. For instance, when tools like cultivators or plows work on the fields, and when vehicles drive over the fields and react to these fine-scale bumps and ridges. There is also a procedural level of ground deformation which is mapped with geometry in a similar way to how the terrain is texture mapped with images, except it runs on the CPU instead of the faster GPU, so we had to heavily optimize this code. How does the game handle visual transition for ground deformation? Another new feature for FS25 is the Terrain Quad-Tree Mesh, which enables high-resolution triangle rendering near the player but uses a lower resolution further away. There is no need to render the deformed geometry when it's hundreds of meters away. The geometry smooth morphs from deformed to not deformed some distance from the player. However, this transition is quite well hidden because of another new technology in FS25, which is the Terrain Virtual Texture System. Although deformation is not rendered in the distance using triangles, it is still shaded and rendered into the terrain texture using a graphics technique called normal mapping. So the deformation is still clearly visible even on distant areas where the rendered triangle count is very low, and you can see the tracks left by the AI vehicles even if you are watching them from half a kilometer away. Basically, this means that even players on the lower end gaming machines can enjoy this new technique, and I actually have prepared something. Let me show you. So this is FS22, obviously, because FS25 hasn't come out yet, and I have plowed, cultivated and made a ridge on the field and did some tests just to make sure that I'm not talking nonsense. But I also have gotten 3 tractors, normal tires, tracks and narrow tire, just to show you. So if I hop into this tractor and we drive on top of the field, you will actually see a little bit of difference. So first of all, Here goes with the cultivated land, sorry. You see there is just a tiny bit of tires going into the ground, but nothing really happens. Even if we go on top of the ridge, let me get a little bit closer. You see how the tire marks are getting a little bit deeper, like into the grooves. Even if we drive between the ridge, there's just this little, just minimum resistance. However, if we drive on top of the plowed area, you can immediately see that the tracks are sinking deeper, but this is just on a very basic level. There is not a real difference in ground response. Of course, there are different mods out there, as you may know, ground response mod and even the rain mod, that makes complete difference. Let's try the tracks. I don't think there's gonna be any difference. I haven't tested the tracks actually. So let's drive on top again on the ridges. And as you can see, not even a little bit of ground response whatsoever. So the tracks do sink. Sorry, the tires sink, but the tracks do not. What happens if we go on the plowed area? Nothing. So having real ground response in FS25 is really going to make the difference between a game about farming and a real simulator. Let's check the narrow tires. As you can see, there's a little bit of a tire sinking in the ground, but again, this is more of a cosmetic side. This time I think it's actually the same as the cultivated. I mean, remember on the normal tire there was difference between cultivated and ridges, but here there is no difference. What about plowed area? Yeah, that's a lot of difference. So the biggest difference in tires is between the normal tires. So narrow tires, almost nothing. So guys, remember FS25 comes out 12th of November. There's actually a link in the description if you want to support the channel. Remember, I get a little bit small percentage, but if you want to get the game and also support the channel, there's a link below. I really hope this information is helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, make sure to join Discord where we can discuss whatever questions you have. I'm Stan the Man, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye for now.